made me think more of like this really happened.
You get to experience other places than what you're really used to.
Kids to come down here, visit all these sites, learn from all these people.
It just gave me chills.
Learn your culture, do your research.
I learned a bunch of stuff that I did not know.
I mean, it just sort of felt like we were in it.
The young people are into it.
You look at things different when you actually go visit the places.
These have changed kids' lives. The whole issue we all need to remember that we have to change the mindset about education. If a kid don't believe that they are capable academically, we can tell them they can go to college all day long. They don't see that or feel that.
The history of the Civil Rights Tour begins in the hallways of City High in 2007. Mr. Harper was a resource officer at the school when some students came to him feeling that black students weren't being heard or properly represented.
Then they came to me and said, hey, Mr. Harper, can we do our own thing? Can we create our own program?
From there, Fast Track was created, an educational program to help guide students toward academic success. During group discussions, Mr. Harper heard repeated misconceptions and generalizations about the civil rights movement. After some conversations on the topic, it seemed that a road trip was in order.
Well, let me just take you guys down south so you guys can understand more about the civil rights movement. So we originally started with just 2 vans, and we take like the first crew, maybe 15 kids.
Along with visiting monuments and museums, the trip also provided an opportunity to visit historically black colleges and universities.
By having them go and seeing other black kids, seeing these civil rights monuments, listening to these stories, they understand now there's a lot of people that paid the price for them to vote, get education, and be responsible for their own choice.
The trip's impact was evident from the very beginning.
You know, I guess I really wasn't paying attention until Mr. Harper took us. And so the trip for me was eye-opening. It was amazing. It taught me a lot about the schools. It taught me a lot about our history.
Being able to really see and not just hearing it makes a difference. So it was just great.
Flash forward a decade, and the trip has grown immensely.
So we've taken 600 kids over the last 10 years. We have a 100% graduation out of high school. We have 25 college graduates.
That continued growth requires additional support. In 2018, Team Can, a nonprofit backed by the local chapter of the Teamsters, stepped in as an organizer of the trip.
For Teamsters to get involved with this piece and to show that we go out and we advocate for social and racial justice, that's what they did for civil rights.
Each year, students, along with some parents, chaperones, and community leaders, jump onto a bus to travel a couple thousand miles to reflect on our nation's unsightly past and explore where the future leads.
Visiting where Martin Luther King was shot, like to be there and to know that this legend was killed here and we got a chance to actually be there, it meant a lot.
Our trip begins with one of the most iconic sites in the civil rights movement, the Lorraine Motel.
Like it all just sunk in, like he was actually shot here. Like I'm standing at the same place that he was standing at. It's eye-opening.
On April 4th, 1968, clergyman and civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. was shot and killed on the balcony of the motel, which now serves as the National Civil Rights Museum.
It was just very moving. You kind of get like emotional because it's like so real.
Among its many exhibits, visitors are given a glimpse of room 306 as it was during the final hours of Dr. King's life.
They kept it exactly how it was, and that was just kind of surreal for me.
Encountering the room that Martin Luther King Jr. was in right before he was shot and killed. Yeah, I've been to the Lorraine Motel twice before, but never inside, never there. It was powerfully moving for me.
From a Bible on the bedside table to the wreaths still hanging on the balcony, each item serves as a reminder more powerful than can be replicated in a textbook.
I think what stuck with me the most is like seeing the room, because I think that was like a really cool aspect of it.
I guess I see it firsthand. I see the actual scenes, and instead of what the textbook's showing, I'm actually seeing it in person.
It like really showed how like a normal day can turn so like tragic.
the museum covers much more than MLK's assassination. From the history of the slave trade to the bus boycotts, from lunch counter sit-ins to the sanitation strike, the very reason King was in Memphis.
Even though like some of the stuff when we learned in the museum, I kind of knew, but it kind of brought more to it, brought more information to me to understand the events that happened.
Through interactive media and unique exhibits, you travel through 5 centuries of struggle in a way that leaves a lasting impact.
It's different when you like read about it and then actually experience it. It's like I was a part of everything that happened, even though it happened so long ago. So it was like nice to actually like be in it and like see what other people had to go through and like see all the struggles.
Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water.
Located on the Mississippi River, Memphis quickly became Tennessee's largest slave trading city. A growing demand for cotton created a boom in plantations, along with a spike in the forced labor of slaves shipped in from Africa. While many supported this inhumane practice, this home represents those who fought against the slave trade. Jacob Burkle, a German immigrant and stockyard owner, helped harbor escaping Africans who had been separated from their families, stripped of their freedom, and sold to the highest bidder. Now known as the Slave Haven Underground Railroad Museum, the home is kept intact to preserve a story that was kept secret for more than 100 years.
Being out here, actually being part of the history, it gets to your heart and it gets you more wanting to understand it.
Due to copyright concerns, our cameras weren't allowed in the museum, but the tour tells how Burkle's modest home provided refuge for runaway slaves during their flight of freedom.
Like, it's one thing to read about it in like a history book or in history class, but it's another to actually like walk down into the cellar, see the hole that the slaves escaped into. It's a whole new experience.
Burkle and his family risked their lives by harboring slaves in their cellar, which could be accessed through a secret tunnel.
How they escaped, especially downstairs, that was like a wow moment for me because I didn't expect it to be like that small.
Being down there, like people were in the same standing exactly where I was standing hundreds of years ago.
The home served as part of the anti-slavery movement from 1855 all the way up to the abolition of slavery, and the secret was kept for many more years due to fear of the family's safety. This home is just one of many that helped fight to break the chains of slavery.
Wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water.
My name is Armin Bragg, and I've been a member of 16th Street for over 60 years.
The 16th Street Baptist Church marks a turning point of the civil rights movement. On September 15, 1963, this Birmingham church was the site of a horrific bombing. Several sticks of dynamite attached to a timing device went off at 10:22 a.m., killing 4 young girls attending Sunday school and injuring more than 20 other members of the congregation. Armin Bragg was at work that day, unloading a shipment in the basement of a nearby department store.
We didn't hear anything about the bombing. About 3 or 4 o'clock, I got off that afternoon and I was headed home and I saw the police cars roaming the streets, and I was wondering what was going on. So I turned the radio on, found a news station, and about halfway home heard that the 16th Street Baptist Church had been bombed. Later on that evening, we found out that the 4 girls had been killed.
The vicious crime produced an outpouring of sympathy and concern as news spread of the white supremacist terrorist act. Following the bombing, more than $300,000 were contributed to restore the church, which was reopened the following year. Perhaps most unexpected was a gift that came from across the Atlantic Ocean.
Somewhere along around 1965, we received this window from the people of Wales, UK, and the guy that did the window is named John Pitts. And he wanted to make a statement with the window. So he showed a black man hanging on the cross like Christ, and with the one hand he's pushing out against segregation and oppression, and with the other hand he's reaching for forgiveness and reconciliation.
The 16th Street Baptist Church remains an active congregation in the community, offering tours that provide proof of the sacrifices that were made.
Dr. King did his whole movement from this church, and so we thought we'd just keep the history going about what he did and our role in the civil rights movement and the sacrifices we made with the 4 young girls.
I knew about them, but going to be able to go to the church where it happened and seeing, like, when we went into the park, the statue, it was kind of like, it brought it more to life.
Through 10 years of trips, a special bond has been made with the city of Birmingham.
I'm very proud of the fact that we have put together some relationships in the South.
As a sign of appreciation, the tour was invited to spend a day learning about the city's progress. And we brought along members of our city council as well.
I think we're really now seeing the fruits of that civil rights struggle in the city of Birmingham, a dynamic, multiracial city, which is exactly what Martin Luther King envisioned for such a great community.
The kids were given a behind-the-scenes look at the role of the fire department, community outreach efforts through the police department, and the city's programming through the Department of Youth Services.
Well, by far the most interesting thing was the skit that was performed.
I'm stupid! You weren't stupid! I heard on Snapchat that you stole money from your mama to buy a gun! What? That's real stupid! Who are you talking to, huh? Who are you talking to? Who are you talking to? Freeze! Man, what you doing?
It was so realistic, I could feel every one of our kids just resonating with that.
And it was all capped off with the opportunity for the kids to meet Mayor Randall Woodfin, the youngest mayor that Birmingham has had in over a century.
I think my favorite part was just seeing like all of these like young black men and women in leadership positions. I don't see that in a lot of places, and like to see that like in Birmingham, Alabama was just like life-changing and very inspiring to see.
So while we've witnessed these tragic moments, at the same time it's been incredibly rewarding and gratifying to see what's happening now in the South, and to have our young people in Iowa City see all these terrific role models that we have in the South in terms of people of color in essential leadership positions.
After a full dose of inspiration, the day ended with a friendly challenge on the basketball court.
That was big to me because like they literally really walked on that bridge and like they really like that. It's all real. Like that was like a big thing for me.
You get to actually see it in person and you get to experience it.
I'm glad I just got the opportunity to do it.
From the voting rights marches to the bus boycott, Montgomery was center stage for the civil rights movement in Alabama. And with Governor George Wallace, a staunch segregationist, leading the capital, the fight for equal treatment was met with resistance at every step. A stop at the Rosa Parks Library and Museum demonstrates how strategy was key for gaining ground in the battle for social justice. Rosa Parks' refusal to give up her seat is well documented.
Are you going to stand up? No.
But the planning that went into conquering the segregation system used on Montgomery's buses took many more people. The Montgomery bus boycott began on December 5, 1955, the day following the arrest of Mrs. Parks. Months of planning was done to organize the boycott, including lining up rides for the thousands of people who normally relied on the transit system on a daily basis. The boycott delivered a combination blow. On the economic front, the Montgomery City lines lost between 30,000 and 40,000 bus fares each day. At the same time, it fueled media attention on the boycott, which only ended when a Supreme Court ruling declared the Alabama and Montgomery laws that segregated buses unconstitutional. It's that type of depth and detail of the history that reaches the students who attend this trip.
An opportunity to learn more about the civil rights movement and the people who are involved in it, and it's important to understand that and the struggles that they went through.
I see how my ancestors came up and the things that they had to go to, and I'm blessed and I have the luxury to not have to go through the same things just because all the hard times and suffering that they had to go to get me to the place where I am today.
So that means success. That means somebody was touched when they went to one of the monuments or one of the museums and they felt what it was like back then and they want to make a change.
Another neat experience was hearing from Jean Grates, who worked alongside her husband, Pastor Robert Grates, to help organize the bus boycott. The tour also visited the Dexter Avenue King Memorial Baptist Church, a central meeting spot for organizers during the civil rights movement. It was also where Martin Luther King Jr. continued his work as a pastor from 1954 to 1960, taking a lead role in the bus boycott with other local leaders in the community.
How long?
No.
I said, how long?
No. All right.
And during his time with the church, Dr. King and his young family lived here. On the front porch is a plaque which commemorates the day the home was bombed in retaliation to the bus boycott. Dr. King wasn't home at the time, but his wife and child were. Fortunately, no one was injured. The Dexter Parsonage Museum recounts how an angry mob of church members and civil rights supporters showed up outside the home that evening. Dr. King calmed the crowd by pleading for nonviolence, saying, "I want you to love our enemies. Be good to them. This is what we must live by. We must meet hate with love." Our final stop in Montgomery was the Civil Rights Memorial, hosted by the Southern Poverty Law Center. The memorial honors those who have died during the struggle for equal treatment of all people, regardless of race. At the end of the experience, visitors are invited to sign the Wall of Tolerance, which digitally displays the names of more than 500,000 people who have pledged to take a stand against hate and work for justice. Atlanta is known as the cradle of the civil rights movement. It served as the epicenter during the battle for justice, a hub for leaders who fought for voting rights, equal treatment, and economical and educational opportunities. It's also the birthplace of Martin Luther King Jr., and his former home in the Sweet Auburn neighborhood has been preserved. Just down the street from his childhood home stands the Ebenezer Baptist Church, where for 8 years Reverend King Jr. shared the pulpit with his father. The King Center serves as an archival exhibition of the impact Dr. King had. Hundreds of photographs, teachings, and speech transcripts line the walls. Outside, in the center of a reflecting pool, rests the King Crypt, a marble memorial for Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott King. Soaking in the message of Dr. King is only part of the purpose of this trip.
I'm just hoping and praying that what they learned, that they can go back and teach a friend or two, or a family member or sibling, some of the stuff that they've learned.
And then I'll start just by teaching or just telling my family members like them, so then they could get a wider base and then just learn more from there.
Live in that moment and then also take it back with you.
Another lesson learned on the trip has to do with a different country's disgraceful history of organized discrimination.
Their history is a lot connected to a lot of stuff that happens to us as black people.
The William Bremen Jewish Heritage Museum provides visitors with an overview of the Holocaust. The gruesome history of Nazi Germany provides an opportunity to reflect on another group's struggle, taking note of the similarities in suffering.
We could dive deeper into our culture, but not just only that, we could dive deeper into other cultures, because every culture has been through something.
I'm learning new things. Each place we go, I've learned things that I've never knew, and I'm learning about people who I've never heard of.
Along the trip, the tour makes several visits to HBCU campuses. This gives kids a chance to feel out different universities, talking to students about campus experience.
I still have a few years in school, and being able to get that information before I actually have to decide is just very helpful.
I felt like the people that showed us around really didn't just show us around. They actually talked to us, looked at us, and gave us examples and their experiences, and I felt like that helped a lot.
UAPB 1873.
They're all like one family. It's a small school, so I like the fact that you get to know your teacher. You know, if you need help, you go talk to them and stuff like that. I really like that.
It's nice to see smaller colleges that's not so known, because it gives you a different experience and things. And then it's with that college more people of my race and stuff, so it makes me feel kind of more comfortable.
Many students have chosen a college after attending this trip.
It made me want to come in and go to an HBCU. It made me want to, be around the culture and learn about myself.
Being around people as African Americans that's doing, positive things and want to make a change, and just waking up seeing people that the same color as you, the same age as you, really want to get out there and learn and do better.
Figuring out the financial hurdles is another part of the visits.
When we get to the schools, they get a chance to talk to financial advisors. They get to talk to current students, and those students are able to tell them exactly their experience, what they went through, how they can seek financial aid.
Which can be reassuring for parents.
I do see that it has changed her mind a lot. She's more eager about going away to college now since she's been here on this trip. This is the really critical time in their life. You're going to become an adult. So now is the time for you to get serious. It's time for you to get out there, figure out what it is, what you want to do.
Much of the trip looks at the struggles of the past, only to emphasize the opportunities of the future.
Once they come and see the opportunity which we present them, they kind of want to do something different, within their education, and try to aspire to be great like some of the individuals they learn about. So we are happy about a lot of that it does have this effect.
We can be whatever in life, doctors, lawyers. I like that.
Over the past decade, more than 600 kids have had the opportunity to experience the civil rights trip.
Even just coming on the trip and be able to go these different places, I'm learning a lot that I haven't already known.
You get to experience a lot of different places. It's just a great experience to have.
At the end, always important to me when I hear kids saying, oh, this is what I'm gonna do different. This is how this has affected me. This is why I wanna go to school.
And at this 10-year milestone, Mr. Harper will be stepping down from his role as organizer of the trip. Team CAN will continue this yearly tradition, hoping to expand the legacy that Mr. Harper has laid.
So I think this is going to be a long-term partnership. We're going to continue to grow and learn from each other.
There's a saying that goes, if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it. In order to make change, you need to be involved. You need to register to vote. You need to address injustices. So I'm hoping the kids take that away from this.
Helping the next generation carry on the principles that fueled the civil rights movement.
Stand up for what you believe is right, no matter what circumstances come your way.
Living off that, coming together as one, that would be the greatest thing America has ever done.
So whether it's your first time or you've experienced a trip before,
it's a great opportunity. This is my 5th trip. I feel like every time you come, you learn something new.
No matter how many times you take this trip, it's emotional.
This is an experience you won't want to miss.
It's so great, and I recommend it for anybody.
People understand the history and they want to better themselves. Everyone wants to achieve great things.
It's really important that we actually live in it, and be with people that have lived in it.